COVID-19 has affected every sector across the globe, and the hotel industry is among the hardest hit. Some researchers suggest that recovery to pre-COVID-19 levels could take until 2023 or even later. And like so many industries, hospitality will also see both subtle and substantial shifts in the post-pandemic era. That's what inspired Ryen Martyn Events on hosting this panel today entitled The Hospitality Reborn under the umbrella of 4 hospitality trend summits worldwide. From repurposing a property to adapting new strategies and approaches to secure a strong comeback for hotel assets once the industry restarts, a multitude of things have to be considered, from operational changes to strict hygiene measures. Our panel today gathers diverse industry experts that should bring a fresh perspective to the topic. I'll start by letting each of them introduce themselves before guiding the discussion to more specific areas. So I'll ask you each to quickly present yourself and give us some thoughts on the biggest challenges you face today in implementing your vision for the organization during this unprecedented time.
So I'm Dr. Madhu Chandok and I'm from India. I have come from a hospitality background from the projects, so from designing to project design management to construction management and to also implementation and opening of various properties. I've been in the industry for almost 38 years now, worked from the owner's side as well as with Hilton Worldwide Corporate Office India. And as you mentioned, today in these unprecedented times, we feel that the world, and we were just discussing, that it has just brought the world together. And it's like a global family that we're all feeling. So the pain is also very common, and the challenges are also quite common. So there's not much difference. And I think what is going to affect a lot is basically the budgeting of our new projects in terms of the capacity of builders, owners, and developers to do that cash flow, because that is going to pinch them. And for times to come, we have to find efficient ways of managing, so I use a terminology called revenue by design. So we have to try and see how we can bring in some revenue to the while we are actually looking at projects. And the biggest challenge right now, I feel personally, would be the cash flow challenge, or at least, and also manpower, because a lot of companies are letting go of their teams because they cannot sustain them very well. A lot of, even especially hospitality, has been hit. It's literally bleeding every day, and there's not much happening. Although being optimistic, let's hope things come, in a better format. So I would just let the next person introduce.
Okay, my name is Kamal Golami. I've been in the industry for several years, and I'm a consultant to developers and architects, and also construction companies. Myself, I have developed and built around 10 hotels in Morocco, so I'm familiar with all the issues about building and construction and design. And today, as we are facing this unprecedented situation, it is really impacting the way that we were not expecting this in the first place with this magnitude. And it is something that we have to deal with certainly in the future, but in the short term, as I see in Marrakesh, all the hotels are closed, and those who are trying to open, it's because there is some inflow and some demand from the locals who are on vacation and they want to travel, and they are looking for places where they can be, where they can have some comfort in terms of sanitization and all the hygiene protocol that is put in place. And this is a cost, of course, for the hotels who are trying to reopen, because most of the guests are usually come from Europe and other destinations, so there is no flights. But just to open for just to have like maybe 5 or 10% occupancy is really a challenge, and to implement all these requirements is another challenge. And of course, as it impacts on the budget, on the bottom line, and what does it leave for the hotel? How can it sustain itself until the end of the year without any support, I would say. So unless there is only the owner who can support himself, but the banks actually don't support much the industry in a very direct way, and so you have to pay for the personnel, and you have all kinds of costs that are incurred that you have to deal with.
So my name is Mohammed, and I manage the World Green Building Council's Africa and MENA networks. The World Green Building Council tries to catalyze the uptake of sustainable buildings for everyone, everywhere. We aim at transforming the building and construction sector across 3 strategic areas, which is climate action, health and well-being, and resources and circularity. And we are a global action network comprised of about 70 green building councils around the globe. Now, people are talking a lot about COVID and the challenges faced by COVID, but even before COVID, the world was facing many challenges that have to do with climate change and trying to keep the temperature increase below or at 1.5 degrees. So I'll give you a few numbers. By 2050, the global population will increase to 9.8 billion people, and the global floor area would increase by 100%. Buildings are responsible for about 39% of global carbon emissions, and energy demand will increase by 50% by 2050. So even pre-COVID, there are many challenges. And when it comes to health and well-being, and health and well-being is a very important component today in green buildings, we can say that 91% of people live where air pollution levels exceed World Health Organization limits. Now people, and this is an important figure because it affects us as people are 40% more likely to have asthma due to living at a home with damp or mold. So hotels and what applies to buildings, of course, can be seen in hotels, especially when we know that about 9% of the global GDP comes from the global hospitality and tourism industry. So all of the numbers I mentioned are reflected in the hospitality sector. Now let's add another layer of challenge, which is COVID. People are becoming more aware of health issues. So when we build or renovate hotels, we really need to take issues that have to do with health and well-being and indoor air quality into the formula. I remember at the beginning of the COVID issue, we were seeing satellite images of pollution around the world, and we saw the relationship between pollution and people having low immunity or less. So we saw there was a relationship between pollution and people getting infected. And I think this again applies to the hospitality industry. Now, there's a third layer of challenges we have to deal with, which is climate resilience and change. Now, we expect temperatures to increase in the future. How would that affect the hospitality industry? if a hotel was built in 1960, when temperatures were lower than they are today, and they will be much lower than we expect them to be in 2050. How would the hospitality industry deal with this? How could they improve their product in order to become more environmentally friendly, healthier, and also more resilient? So there are so many issues that affect the hospitality industry in relation to climate change and health and climate resilience.
My name is Piotr Kalinowski, and I represent a company. I'm CEO and design director of company Mixed. We are interior design and in hospitality, office and retail, based in Poland, in Europe. We hire around 20 people and work with global brands, including Hilton, Marriott, and Accor, and T-Mobile, Accenture, and all the big brands which needs a professional service in terms of interior design. Our main focus is to deliver better interior design and architecture for clients, but most importantly for the end user. So for all of us, we want the spaces to become more and more environmental friendly, open for people, and based on the human values and human experiences. And this is our main goal for developing the hotel, international hotels, offices, and other places where human is most important, but also in terms of environmental friendly building. We are involved in projects in Central Eastern Europe, as well as Eastern, as well as Asia, and also we were working with Balkans, so the Southern Europe, and many other interesting places. And we are a young company, developing very fast, and we really love to travel. We really love to experience hotels and new places and experiences ourselves. So it's for us, the pandemic situation is very tough, because we are closed, we're locked out of traveling, out of many new hospitality projects we were involved in, or we were planning to be involved in. The whole industry in matter of 3 weeks has changed drastically, and many of the projects we were involved in has stopped or are cancelled or are delayed. And we see that many new projects are arising on the pandemic situation, which were considered to not be mainstream before, and now they are mainstream even more because of the switch in the investment direction, at least in our region. And this is, in our opinion, the hospitality will get back to normal year after year. Of course, it will be challenging situation for everyone, but I believe that human and people will handle the situation and will tackle the challenge, and they will get people moving around again. And it's when we consider when we will be in 3 years considering the past and 2020, I think many of us will see, on the one hand, challenges we were facing, but on the other hand, the good things that we have learned on this situation, and maybe the problems which were not considered to be important, now they are. For example, the public health, or the quality of the apartments, or the quality of the workplace, or the hotels, how they are clean, and also how they developing their offer for clients. Those situations always have good sides and bad sides. So we hope that the situation will turn into something good for all people around the globe. In our position as interior designers, we see many opportunities in areas like co-living and co-working, maybe the residential areas, more switching the hospitality into residential, into resorts sort of thing. I think many interesting projects arise in apartment segment and like long stay hospitality, which transforms a little bit more into mainstream for us, at least in big cities where the hotels are still closed and the movement on foreign people and business travelers are much lower or even zero at this point. Many of the investors have switched to co-living, which is a very nice idea, and it was I think this philosophy of co-living was developed many years ago, but it's a relatively new philosophy, and we see that it was involved in more smaller projects or more niche projects, and now we see co-living as a mainstream projects, and this is very interesting because idea of living together in areas including the public spaces designated for those people, and also designated spaces where architects can be involved and design interior design for everyone, like to take all needs into consideration before launching the product, like for example 200 or 300 apartments, and this creates a great value for people and for many of us to introduce a better quality of living. And these are main challenges we face right now. Oh, one more thing I would add to this is that the resort projects and touristic areas where I think it might be a hospitality foundation right now, where business travelers and MICE would be much harder to recover. But in my opinion, the touristic movement and maybe the resort movement might be easier to recover. And also here I would look for renovations, which might introduce some new quality and environmental friendly projects. And this might be interesting work for us as designers as well.
Thank you. I think we got everyone to introduce. Well, thank you so much for sharing those insights. I will do a quick wrap up at the end of the session. Now I will just go through the agenda. I will go through the different points of the agenda, and for each of the teams, I will be asking one question to one of you. And please just keep in mind to keep your answers a little bit brief and short. You're allowed like something like 5 minutes so that we can interact afterwards. So I'll start with the first theme. So now we will be talking about design and build. And the first theme is the significant changes into hotel architecture and design post-pandemic. So the question I'll be asking to Mr. Mohammed Asfour, in order to get a global vision for MENA and Africa, since there are regions you're managing under the World Green Building Council. And the question is, what do you think is the biggest threat to design and construction industry amid and post-pandemic? You've already tackled one of them, but if you can give insights.
I think we've addressed a few of those, and I feel we tend to use the word challenges a lot. So maybe it's good also to focus on the word opportunities. And I believe those in the market or in the hospitality industry who adapt to the current reality would be in a much better or more competitive position in order to increase the number of visitors they have and the number of people they accommodate to. So there are two, I think, important areas from a building and construction perspective. One is existing hotels and hospitality buildings, and then there are the new buildings that will be built for the future. In terms of the existing buildings, there's huge room for retrofitting, and we spoke about resource efficiency, we spoke about health and well-being. So this is a chance to revamp the whole way we are retrofitting hotels around the world. I think it's really important to focus on issues also that have to do with indoor air quality, because For example, I myself would prefer to go to a place or stay at a hotel or a homestay where I ensure that the quality of the air is good and that I will not be infected, not just through COVID, but various illnesses and poor indoor air quality will all affect me. So now, as an international tourist, let's say, I am more aware. So when I look for a new hotel, I'd like to go to a hotel that is healthier and that would give more attention to health and well-being. Now we spoke about resource efficiency, and maybe this is not directly related to COVID, but it's related to resource efficiency. And I found that it was really interesting to see, as an example. So let's say there's a hotel which includes about 150 rooms with an occupancy rate of 75%. Just a piece of information: when you have a shower, you consume 15 liters of water per minute. So if we have 75 occupancy rate for these 150 rooms, it means that the cost of water per hotel per month would be about 3,000 euros. Add to that an additional cost for energy, which is about 60%. And this varies, of course, because we need to always take into account the climatic conditions in which this hotel is built. So we come up with a bill of not less than maybe 6,000 or 5,000 euros. So a hotel of 150 rooms is consuming, for one shower a day, the 75% of the occupants, about 60,000 euros. And this gives you an idea of how important energy efficiency is in coping not only with the health issues that we started by mentioning, but also the need for hotels to become more cost-effective in order to combat the negative impacts that the crisis has had on the revenues of the industry. So on one side, we need to improve hotels and retrofit them in the way that is healthier, and also on the other side, we really need to look at resource efficiency. Now, with new hotels, we really need to take all of these principles right from the beginning, and also ensure that we are designing for a different world of tomorrow. So today we are using hotels that were constructed in a way that responded to low energy prices, for example. Tomorrow's hotels need to take into account health and well-being, advancing net zero, climate resilience, and all of these important issues. So there's a lot that the hospitality industry needs to do in order to change the way it thinks, the way it functions, and the way it attracts customers in the future.
Thank you. And thank you for the insights. It's really interesting. Thank you first by starting with the positivity of turning challenge to opportunities, because that's the whole point about it. But also, I really like the two areas you've tackled about resources and health, because I feel that the two are connected. And also, by being more resource efficient, hotels can also redirect those savings towards increasing the health and well-being of properties by providing new features for health and safety and well-being. So yeah, and also this awareness of tourists is also important to take into account. And I was imagining if platforms like Booking could add some criteria like having garages and pools, another criteria, for example, for air quality, and I think that people will start asking for this kind of things. So I think I really agree with you that the industry should take all of these criteria into account and also design for tomorrow's challenges and opportunities. And yeah, because buildings are there for at least 60 years. So we need to look forward to what can come in the future and design accordingly. So I'll move on to second theme, which is still within design and build. I want to dig deeper into ReThink, ReDesign, and ReEngineer. And we know that the biggest stock of building is what's already existing, it's not what's coming. So my next question is to Mr. Piotr as a designer. The question is renovation of existing property a challenge or an opportunity? And if you can share your views on this area of renovation and what's the new parameters and new features that are to be taken into account after post-pandemic.
Thank you. Our approach for renovation is definitely an opportunity for the hotels to be better and better every day and every year. Every dollar we spend on renovation is a chance for changing things for better. So with our projects in our renovation projects, we were faced with challenges even from like last week or 2 weeks ago, and many new interesting things we are learning about the end user and customer who needs to have, for example, the sanitation, like the hand sanitation is a thing that people weren't talking so much before. I mean, that there was this topic was of course everywhere, but this is a main issue today, how to place a sanitation in the public spaces, and we face the design changes right now where we design designated spaces to wash hands in public. This wasn't present before, and this is quite interesting that it's showing the changes that will last even after the 9/11 crisis in 2001. Everyone was asking, how people will get back on planes, right? And people apparently get back on planes quicker than we imagined. And now it's the same situation, but some of the issues they have on 2001 stayed with us. For example, the airport security, and this will be the same with hotels. Many of the pandemic ideas like hand sanitation, in my opinion, or maybe even more cleaning of the and preparing the room for every guest will be staying there for good. So the renovation in this terms should consider this to be a process where we need to consider even it needs to be cleanable even better than before. I mean, if we design a hotel room or we renovate a hotel room, we need to take a look how it will be looking after 5 or 10 years. And in my opinion, many of the sanitation and the restrictions will be there for 5 or 10 years, and they will stay. And this is a functional perspective, of course. So, how the surfaces can be maintained more easily, how the surfaces can be cleaned more often and become durable. How maybe the surfaces can clear the bacteria or viruses by themselves by some technology which can be developed or which can be elevated by this situation. Which kind of natural materials can help to naturally clean the room or maybe naturally ventilate the room. So there are many questions right now asked during the renovation. Should we renovate the ventilation? Should we, in this situation, renovate some elements more functionality, not aesthetically? And in my opinion, this is a very complex challenge, which will be considered with every month. We see new things that arise. And for me, very interesting is how people will consider the interior design in the terms of aesthetically, like the aesthetics, right? And in my opinion, many of the lighter materials, lighter mood boards, more safe design in terms of materials, and more safer, like developing the safer environments with psychological point of view, it will be also on the rise, I think, but because people need the safety, people need to be considered with very big responsibility. I was talking with many industry experts during the Belgrade conference last week, It's called Rebek, and we are talking with Vice President of Hyatt and Vice President of Radisson Group. And I think many of the interesting changes will come to renovation. People will like to bring, for example, the restaurants or maybe the public spaces also to local communities more, to maybe invite people from the city or from the area where this hotel is situated to, for example, bring some new services or new products for those people which are local, because the occupancy is coming lower, and it will take some time to renew the occupancy. So the second thing is bringing and innovating new products during renovation. You can actually redesign part of the rooms for a completely new service, and this is also being looked at because of the lower occupancy. You might have to change a little bit your strategy or the product strategy or develop a new product. So for designers, it's also great to take part in those discussions taking place, because of many of the mainstream brands are redeveloping their strategy. And this is a situation where you need many points of view and many interesting insights. And as we see in our projects, we try to bring our clients our insight on the functionality, on the aesthetics, and also on the strategy. In the point of view of hospitality is very important, and as well as bringing new revenue streams. So those areas are taken very closely, and there's very intense work inside of the hotel chains. In terms of redeveloping the brands and adjusting the brands to be more flexible and more open to new products and new style of living. And this is a very interesting times to work and to renovate a hotel, because if you renovate a hotel, you can look for new products, you can look for new aesthetics, you can think about introducing new end user, new client. Not exactly the tourists. Maybe tourists are not available for a longer time. You can spread your revenue stream from the locals. So there's many interesting choices to be made, and also the designers should be involved in this, because we are creative people and we have many ideas which can be very useful. So thank you very much.
Thank you for those insights. And I'll summarize your point as being renovation is a real opportunity because it's an innovation enabler, and it's an innovation enabler for different parties and stakeholders. So the hotel, from its side, should think about new strategies and new revenue streams, as you say, but also designers should play a role in proposing adaptable buildings and spaces that can do something else rather than just providing rooms for tourists. But hotels can also include other services as well, and these services will also allow the hotel to be more resilient in terms of crisis. And for example, if there was, I don't know, like offices within the building, the offices could still function while tourists cannot come to the property, and the property will stay alive instead of being shut down for like 4 months or more.
Yes.
And also the other important part is a call for innovation for industries to think about cleanable environment, to propose new materials and new technologies in order to enhance the health and well-being of every surface people will interact with. And we'll definitely come back to this point later on. So that's also related to my next point about it's a focus on forms of contamination regarding air, water, surface, and food. And my next question is to Ms. Madhu. The question is, what are your views on hygienic conditions to cope up with sustainable goals? And I would like to ask this question to you because in PIP, your mission is to integrate hospitality design with project management and operations. And I would like to ask, how is these processes impacted by such a sanitary crisis? And how have your tailor-made solutions started to incorporate these new variables in the different things you're suggesting to your clients?
Yeah, so part of the hotel planning or any building renovation, etc., there are many subject specialists who are involved. Now, what happens is that from an ownership side, the understanding of the importance of all the various specialists will actually have to be consolidated, and we are looking at doing a very collaborative approach. As I also mentioned earlier, this pandemic has brought us so much closer and opportunities have increased. And I was just hearing about the sustainability and the responsibility that lies on designers and specifiers like us. So what we feel is that because healthcare and sanitization and all has taken sort of a leap, and it has become the top priority. So the way we had the security integrated into our hotel arrival experiences, similarly, a hygiene factor will need to be. So we in our hotels at the entry level today live with that baggage scanning machine, which came in with the 9/11 and other, whatever issues that we had at our end to make the safe environment for a guest. Similarly, now we have to also make the guest feel much more safe in our building. So there are 2 or 3 aspects that we see when we are actually telling owners, because as designers we need to integrate all this so that it doesn't look like an afterthought. So aesthetically, and also the materials or even the equipments that we specify have to be integrated into that. So with the integration of the various materials, equipment, we need to make sure that the guest, when he enters, he feels comfortable. Like for instance, we have the FF&E, which is around in a particular space, which is the furniture, the tables, lamps, etc. Now all these surfaces, touching and feeling of these surfaces, we are on the verge of developing and working with vendor base, and it's very important for each one of us in our own region to work with the local vendor base who are developing these technologies. So there is a company who's developing, say, a nanotechnology spray, which could be which would make the surface very hygienic from viruses and bacteria for about 100 days. So that means that surface coating is with no odor, etc. So I am going to review that demo in a few days from now. So people are innovating. So these are things that we have to actually tie up with them. So the bridging between the specifiers and between the vendors need to be really done locally, so that we could create a safe environment for our, whosoever are our customers, and they feel good, and also for the staff. See, all people, it's not just for the client, it's also for the inmates of that built environment who need to be safe. And also to be sustainable, we all have to question the source of the material. We have to question the recycling of the material. I think the designers have to wear another hat of sustainability and make sure to make the world, and as it was mentioned that the pollutions, and I'm staying in Delhi, and I have even had a number of about almost 1,000 here in Delhi at one time when we couldn't even venture out. And today the pandemic has brought it down to almost 58, 59, 70, so that's the figures that we see every day. So I think we are all responsible for keeping our environment clean. So quality of air, choosing the right material, decluttering our spaces, making them much more cleaner, back of the area. So integrating the staff. Also, a lot of SOPs of hotel operations will change. So we as designers need to understand those SOPs and incorporate in the functionality of the built environment. If we do not understand what the operations, because as mentioned by Piotr, that the hotel brands are really working very hard. So I feel that healthcare and hospitality will learn from each other, and they will come together in a big way post this pandemic, and it's already happening. So we have a lot of learning from the healthcare specifications and everything that now the hotel designers will embrace in their own built environment. and provide tailor-made solutions, because it cannot be the same solution. It will have to depend on what is the benchmarking, where the location is, what is the hotel like, what branding it is. A lot of SOPs will be driven by the brand itself. So hospitality brand are also consolidating and working. Say Hilton is working with companies like Lysol and other clean environment people, and they are coming out. Similarly, Radisson is working, Oberoi's is working, so all that. In fact, the New Delhi Oberoi, which is at Delhi, when they renovated last year, which was pre-COVID situation, they gave a lot of importance to the air quality in that hotel. So they didn't spend too much on FF&E and all enhancement money, but they spent a lot on air quality already. So this was like pre-pandemic. So we always have that alarm ringing. So I think that's the direction that we think we should be going.
Thank you so much, Ms. Madhu. And I would just like to jump over a really important point you've mentioned, is kind of bridging the gap between specifiers and suppliers, because it's us as specifiers that should drive the market upward and bring the suppliers to increase their innovation and creativity to answer the local concerns. And the second point I would like to mention as well is the importance of the local sector. And that's really important, because when we think about standards, about health, about well-being, we tend to first think about importing materials that are already compliant with standards, but we don't think about enhancing local merchants to supply compliant products. And that's even more important during this kind of pandemic, because we've seen all the airplanes stopped, so we cannot really import. And the most, I would say, resilient way is to produce locally as well. And that's also good for the local economy as well. So that's really important. And to add a layer on it is the sustainability. And sourcing locally is certainly more sustainable, and also being able to recycle locally and to innovate and do other things is also important.
I just want to just add one tag which really I used to use a lot. This is, you think global and you cook local. So that's what it is. So we learn from each other, and we try and see, how we can actually adapt that in our local environment. I think I'm very much in for it, and we're trying to do our best.
Yeah, and thank you so much, because that's what we're doing actually. We're connecting across the globe, and we're learning from each other, but then everyone will take the learnings and implement them locally. So thank you. So my next point is about building services and facilities, new MEP methodology to optimize maintenance and operations and protocols on post-COVID-19. My question will be to Mr. Kamel. It's about listing essential technology implementations in hotel buildings that should enable guest well-being. And as an example, if you can share with us your insights about how important, for example, voice-enabled technology adoptions would motivate touchless offerings, and this kind of new mixing between technology to increase health and well-being in hotels.
The objective today is to give a high level of reassurance to the guests, and to minimize the number of touch points between the entry of the hotel and the guest room. So with of course, at the entrance, there will be already after what happened in September 11, a lot of hotels have redesigned a little bit their entrance, because in order to apply security measures. Now, plus the security measures, we need to apply the sanitization measures as well. And so we can have some designed signage on the floor. And talking about surfaces, I would say that there will be probably less use of carpets or rugs because these are, not so well recommended, with this pandemic situation. But I mean, for hotels who are going to be going into renovations, I think that should be taken into account, using, avoiding also the use of rough surfaces and that are not very easy to wipe out, wipe down and clean. So a lot of things like this. The use of technology is going to be very important. And that's an additional cost, of course, in terms of renovation, because with your smartphone, you can open your room, you can order, you can do a lot of things, and maybe we will have guests spending more time in the room. So the room would be kind of redesigned with more space to allow the guests more comfort in using the room to work as well. To have a space for work, and some also designers in the US, like some architecture firms like HKS and WATG and Gensler, they are already integrating some kinds of balconies that are used for where you can put a bike, or where you can put a yoga mat and this kind of thing. So the question of space is really crucial here, because the most important thing for the guest is his space in the room. The other thing is to avoid as much as possible any contact with the staff. So there is also a trend in the use of snatches, whereby you can order whatever you want, your meal, and also receive your laundry or send your laundry, but through snatches, so you don't have any contact with the personnel of the hotel. This is to avoid, again, to have a minimal risk in terms of meeting or mixing with the staff or other guests. The use of, like we were talking about mice before, I think it would be something that would need to be reconceptualized, and we might be seeing more and more, like we take companies or group of people using more private spaces, and not large ones, but these kind of private spaces where maybe you can have just a team coming in from one of the companies in town to have its seminar and so on. But I wouldn't see, like in Marrakesh, there are some big events that take place in some hotels where you have 1,000 people, 2,000 people. That I wouldn't see in the coming future. There will be more little clusters, let's say, of kinds of meetings than very large ones that we are accustomed to. Talking about the air conditioning, in our countries, the price of energy and the use of utilities is very important and sensitive. And So there will be, in terms of MEP, the use of high caliber air filtration, and that's an investment, a real investment, because we need to think about how we can use this, okay, in large spaces like reception or meeting areas and so on. But the use of ventilation, there is a critical point where you allow also where the machine needs to stop, and you need to have some cooling air coming in. So this is the combination of this kind of, in terms of MEP, where you can minimize and save money in terms of spending on energy. I think the lobby area will not be as we are used to see, where you will have just people sitting and waiting and so on. It will be just a place where to transit to your room, and or a multi-purpose area where you can have also some people working there with their laptop, but not necessarily facing each other, but there will be like some kind of bookshelves or some kind of vegetation, or some subtle, let's say, frontiers in terms of using the space. I think the most important thing in terms of customer, the guest experience today, is the perception of cleanness. He needs to feel at every time that there is a high level of cleanness in his environment, in the room, in the public places where he's going to go, maybe in the fitness or in the wellness areas. He needs to see people cleaning, in fact, so that that's very reassuring for the guests to see that there is this high level, and maybe TripAdvisors will be seeing in a few months, or Booking or any other platform, we will see some positive comments in this sense, and maybe some hotels will get some kind of labels from their Ministry of Health, and or a combination between the health department and WHO, whatever. But something that when I'm looking for a destination, I'm looking first where I would be going to the safest place. See?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really like the first analogy you started with about the 9/11 and security issues, and I liked it because it kind of enhances our confidence in what will happen later. And since if we follow the same pattern, we'll definitely see more healthy spaces and more cleaner spaces. Sorry. So yeah, that's interesting in terms of analogy. And what I also took from your insight is we were talking about additional investments for making the spaces healthier, but I just want to stress on the fact that it's additional investments in terms of capital costs, but if we talk about the long-term costs and the long-term return on health and brand image and value and all these kind of things, and we calculate the long-term cost, it will definitely be interesting to invest. And I think that's one of the one of the things we need to sensitize more to talk a lot more to hotel developers and make them more sensible about thinking more on the long-term costs rather than the capital investment. And another thing I found interesting is also you've talked about the balconies where you could do sports and these kind of things, but it's also an opening, and we've been in lockdown in several countries, and the idea of bringing the outside in, and I see Mohammed Al-Shfor sitting in an area with plants and having the biophilia, and it also enhances the mood, and it brings more support. So if the client is to be locked out in a room, having a space where the person can interact with nature, with fresh air, and just open the windows, it's also something that really should be considered in designs, and not only in hospitality, but in all designs, because we don't know what the future will bring. And the last point is about the modularity of spaces. And you've been talking about the lobby and the shelves, and having spaces that can move and create new spaces, transform a transit area into workspace, and that's also the future of furniture, I think. Not the future, but it's already the present.
Yeah.
And it's something that we'll be seeing more and more of these kinds.
For me, there will be probably more the use of more lightweight furniture that you can move around easily, and use the spaces to accommodate such and such event, or so it's we are going to be every time you come to a hotel, maybe it will not be always static as it is, but
definitely
it would this kind of change also is something that is that the guest would be looking for, in terms of attractivity. I wanted to add also that for the F&B part is that there won't be much of the use of buffet, as we used to before, just because of the risk of the food getting contaminated just in a few hours and so on, and sometimes a salad or a dish is not changed at the right time and doesn't have the same flavor and freshness and so on. So all these things will tend to change. And however, what hotels would certainly be doing to reassure their guests is to provide really kind of healthy and bio products, things that are that are not very complicated. The guest today is not going to go for a very high cuisine, but he needs to feel that what's on his dish is really healthy, and that's very, very important.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kamal, and thank you everyone for making yourself available. We've really covered a lot of different areas of design and build, and thank you for all of your insights. Quickly want to cover another complementary area, which is hospitality and tourism goals towards best practices post-COVID. And I have two questions that I will ask right away and let you interact. So the first one is to share your views with regards to impact on future hotels development and investment opportunities during the crisis. The question is to Ms. Madhu and Mr. Kamal as consultants. And the other complementary question is, how would the hospitality industry recover from COVID, and would the use strategies enhance the resilience of this industry against future health pandemic? And this question is to Mr. Piotr as a designer and Mr. Asfor as a global advocate. So I don't want to like impose a proper, like I love the word, a sequence, but it's two open questions. Just to conclude, I will ask you again to be brief and go ahead, whoever wants to take the floor.
For our first question, I'll just share some thoughts. Now, the new build hotels, which are the greenfield projects, probably will roll out depending on the investments involved in those projects, because an average time for a hotel turnaround from planning stage to completion is approximately 3 years. You know, in our system, it should be an ideal scenario in about 3 years. So in 3 years, I'm sure we will be in a good situation from the pandemic and cured. So probably those will be the hotels where owners will start investing, collaborating and working. On the other hand, maybe a lot of existing hotels will start and putting some money into the renovations part, which is refurbishment part, where they will start probably decluttering the hotels and, you know, trying to reorganize their and make their house a little more clean, hygienic and wellness and happiness, you know, to create that confidence back to the actual users. I think that's what they will have to definitely get into, a space. And I think the SOPs, and there's a lot of research happening, as I was mentioning even earlier, with various brands. And the outcome of that research will change even the way the hotels are operating today and how they will operate tomorrow. So those things will also drive. But a major investment and this recovery mode, I still feel that it's going to be a very, very staggered approach, in which the capital expense is something which will be curtailed for a while, and they will probably come in as and when the cash flow improves for the ownership, because they will try and first make their house very much correct and also comfortable and safe for the occupant. So the money will go in those applications, you know, to bring in little bit of sustainability, conserving your energy, reducing your operating costs, you know, of hotels. And a lot will also be developed, in my opinion. Also money will be spent in the development of the skills of their staff and the teams downline, because a lot of multitasking and multi-functioning will come in a big way as a learning. And the staff to hotel room ratio will drop tremendously, especially in India, you know, because here the ratio goes up to about almost 2, which, you know, sometimes 0.85, 1.25 is good enough. So I think that, so HR, in my opinion, also as a function will become very, very important, because that's again where, and which will help reduce cost, because the payroll cost for an owner is actually a pinch every month. So how can they optimize that payroll cost and get a functional and safe environment? I think that's where the money will go from the investors at the moment. So they will probably revisit, you know, and I think we've learned, as I was mentioning to Kamal also when we were just chatting before, that less is more is something that we've learned in this pandemic. So, you know, we need to understand that we don't need such a big thing and luxury. It will be the new luxury. Safety and health will be the new luxury. You don't need an ornamental light fitting and fixture, or you need to not spend on materials so much. We all, as also you were mentioning, you know, that materials, we need to see how we can keep owners' budget in mind, still create that creativity. So I think that's where the money will go, is what I think.
Yeah, and I just want to make a quick link. It's interesting because Kamal was talking about lightweight furniture, and Mr. Piotr was talking about cleanable environments. And if we implement more of easily cleanable surfaces, but also lightweight furniture, we will definitely need less staff to operate and clean all of this. So it's all interconnected, actually. So.
Yes.
And Kamal
yes,
can add.
And this is also, I would like to add that this is incredible that as I presume Mrs. Banthu is sitting in India and I'm sitting in Europe, in Poland, and we have very similar insights on design and on this is incredible for me that as you said, we discuss from all over the world right here, but we have similar problems and similar insights. And this probably will, our possibility of communicating the problems and discussing it very easily, this would probably lead to many interesting solutions and to actually changing things for better, yes, or maybe solving problems, or solving our problems, our company problems, or, you know, as you said, payroll problems, I mean, our investor problems. Then this is really interesting that the whole world is with the same problems right now, but and we can do some impact on this and based on this. And in going into the second question, I mean, I think this is a solution, as you said. How can hospitality recover, and how this can be more resilient? I think hospitality needs to definitely look after end user and be more flexible in addressing the new revenue streams and do it in agile, do it faster and do it very efficient. So hotels can definitely be, they have a high potential of renovating itself and reinventing themselves into something that customers actually need and they are willing to pay for. Yes, so this is not a terrific situation. Of course it is tough and it needs some investment, but many investors may be more risk-taking or even less risk-taking, depends, but they will want to invest on this market to make a profits in the future, long-term future, based on such new movements and such new ideas. And this will happen globally. And this is, I think, that what needs to be done, it needs to connect the hospitality with right inside. We need to discuss those things and educate our clients that there are solutions somewhere in the world that are being made. Yes, so.
And if you allow me to add, I think, yes, a lot of investments will go into renovation, into resource efficiency, into advancing net zero, into health and well-being. But the shape of industry as a whole will change as well. Because I had done some research on adventure tourism before the pandemic, and it was on the rise. Now, people, when they choose the tourism product that they're looking for, they will become more aware of these areas such as ecotourism, adventure tourism, and then there will also probably be more investments in areas that could accommodate for such a service.
Yes.
If I may add, I think hospitality will need to be more and more flexible in terms of meeting the new trends and expectations of guests. Actually, if we take the real estate around the world, the situation with the pandemic, there is more and more demand for people because they've been in this lockdown for several months or weeks. There is more and more demand to go outside Paris and buy a house, outside London, outside New York. So the people want to go to places where they will feel more safer. People want to attend meetings once a week in Paris or New York. They don't want to, so you have large companies like Goldman Sachs and so on. They just want to use only 20% of their office space. You have like Google and Facebook. They are, telling their employees to work. Most of their employees to work from home. Maybe around 90%, whatever. But the thing is that it is really impacting also on the way the hospitality industry is going to evolve. And as we were saying, more is less or less is more, but small also is beautiful. Because before you would find investors interested in 150 rooms, all standard, with such and such a brand and so on, or a 300 room, in a resort area like in Agadir, like in Sharm el-Sheikh, and so on. Now we are looking more into boutique hotels, or some brands with which I am in contact with. They are developing concepts where you have maybe a boutique hotel of 20 or 30 rooms, and all the rest is branded villas. So because the life cycle of the hotel is quite long, it is on the standards of the IRS in the US, the life cycle is 23 years, 0.5, or 25 years if you want. But anyway, 25 years for an investment is quite long in terms of economic cycle. So the name of the game today is to be more agile to changing situations, to unexpected situations, unprecedented situations that may arise, and to reduce the risk. So in terms of real estate, again, the risk factor is very, very important. So that's how I see the coming trends coming in the future.
Yeah. I just want to jump over this last point about, so for reducing the risk, one of the solutions is diversification. It's not building one type of property, but diversifying like rooms and villas. But also, I want to join the point Dr. Madhu was sharing earlier about decluttering. And as you were saying, companies are less and less coming to city centers and more working from suburbs. So that's also from another scale, reshaping cities. And if cities are more decluttered, and if we have satellite cities around big cities, we will also need hospitality infrastructures around the cities and in these suburbs also. So that's also an important intake, I think, for the hospitality industry and investors, because it's not just about coming to headquarters and coming to city centers, but also going to smaller offices in the surroundings of every city.
Absolutely.
So thank you, everyone, and it's been a pleasure sharing this panel with you. I'm really honored of moderating with such a quality experts, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Have a great day.
Meeting you all and sharing this time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.